Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm Lucas and welcome back to yet another video today here on the channel with WOR round 4, I think, at Australia, which took place a while back now. But yeah, here we are. I hope you're having a great day, and I guess we'll just jump straight into it. So, this race, as you may well know, isn't actually on the F1 Esports calendar. And typically when it comes to pre-season races, we try and, it's more valuable to do tracks that end up usually being on the calendar. So Australia is one that, we don't necessarily put much time into, but I, remember basically jumping on the Sunday, making a setup, getting everything. Well, I mean, this race took place on a Sunday, but basically jumping on the day as we have a monster snap going through. I mean, not a monster snap, but a big snap going through the end of Sector 1 as we wind our way now into Sector 2. But yeah, I remember jumping on the day, flying it on sort of a base setup, adapting it, making sure everything was okay, and seeing how we would go basically. So yeah, that's basically all you need to know. Heading now through the high speed section to begin Sector 3, I believe. I think this is part of Sector 3. Yeah, it is, because there's no split time there. So yeah, lots of commitment needed around this track. It's very easy to overstep it, or get an invalidation, make mistakes with track limits. And this section's always so challenging, so easy to understeer. Tucking the car in nice and early for that last corner, having a snap of oversteer for Q1, which will be hopefully our one and only run. And we set our one and only run was good enough for P2 in the session. And yeah, now on to Q2 with 2 sets for Q2 and Q3. So we've got our tyres. Now let's get going. So crossing the line now to start a lap of Australia, heading into turn 1. You want to look for that strip of tarmac, cutting over a little bit of the curb, but not getting a perfect initial traction phase on the exit, having a bit of a snap of oversteer. Braking just past the 100-metre board, and then just about getting to the apex, bringing the car over to the right. Very easy to lose the car on transition between these corners, and then you just pin it flat. Very sketchy, especially when the grip's low, but thankfully the grip starts to ramp up as we progress our way through qualifying. Committing hard through that new corner for this year's game, that 6th gear right-hander, before this big straightaway now that which winds its way towards Sector 3, where we require a lot of commitment. So bringing the car over to the right, traffic getting out of the way, flicking the car in high speed, holding it second, using a lot of curb, using a bit of exit curb as well. DRS open, and now for another new section for this year's game. Traffic on the inside getting out of the way, down to 4th gear. We completely missed the apex there, but still managed to get a decent traction on the exit. A nibble of curb on the inside, braking in a straight line and getting the car in such an understeery corner. The car not really wanting to settle, but as you can see, we're fighting the car, getting on the power, and yeah, that is a 16.768, and that would be, that should be more than good enough to get ourselves through. But we have a spare set of tyres basically anyway, so yeah, let's see how much we can improve. So darting into turn 1 now, using a lot more curb as you can see now, and I think we'd gain a couple of hundreds into turn 1, so instant improvement already as we begin this lap. Braking a bit deeper this time, I think, getting to the apex. We're down on the initial apex, but we get to the apex, down on the initial delta, but we do seem to get a little bit more back as we got to the apex through T3. Tiny bit up now as we commit hard. We don't quite get, we're so close to invalidating on that exit. We didn't get to the apex as good as we wanted to, but we used a lot of commitment through that section, so we're pretty much identical on the delta now as we come towards the final sector, where we know have a bit of time after these corners. How hard are we going to commit? Darting in massively high speed, committing over the curbs, bit of oversteer, full commitment, as we've still not really improved on this delta, albeit we've given it our best efforts in terms of commitment. But this time we get to the apex nicely. How much do we gain? It is just a tiny little bit. Now we've got to commit hard if we really want to find any lap time. How's the entry going to be? Carrying good speed on the way in, but the front end just does not ever want to go into the corner, and we do manage to find some time through the final end of that lap, and it is a .683, good enough for P1 in session for Q2. And now we have 2 fresh sets for Q3. So Let's see how it is now with the additional grip. Darting into turn 1, not using a lot of curb. Not 100% optimal with the minimum speed carry, but it was, you know, good enough for the line that we took. Heading out, how late can we brake now with the additional grip? Nice and smooth, unwinding the throttle. Unwinding the steering, but we lose the car on the rear there, trying to get on the power, so we haven't had a perfect sector 1. How do we get to the apex? We do get a bit more early into this apex. Now winding our way through, just trying to save the distance really through this straight line section. There's not really much you can do, so saving the distance now as we come towards the final sector. It's very easy to throw your lap away here. We commit hard though, use a bit of entry curb, plenty of curb. We're using all the roads that we've got available on the exit through there. Into this braking zone, so hard to pick your braking spot. You want to brake just before that red marker board that we braked at right at that corner. How's this final sector going to be? Got to the apex quite nicely, but how is the exit through here? A little bit too tight actually, maybe on the initial phase of that corner that maybe restricted us getting on power a tiny bit early. And it's a 632.
We've got a banker on the board, so
we've got a banker lap on. But we know we need to improve for sure to make sure that this is going to be pole position. So here we go then, committing hard into turn 1, using quite a lot of curb, using all the road in the exit as well, gaining a tiny bit to start the lap, but a solid run through turn 1 to kick us off, braking heavily into this right-hander, bringing the car over to the right. We know critically we cannot have a snap of oversteer, and instantly the delta goes up, hugging the car nice and tight through that corner, and we've already gained an absolute chunk of lap time, committing hard through there. Nice and smooth, but it's when it looks smooth it's usually a bit more on the limit. So very well executed so far during this lap. How are we going to get on though through this high speed section that we need to sort of commit? We know we're up in this lap, we don't want to throw it away, but we've got to commit hard. So using a bit of that curb, using a lot of curb on the right, pushing on the exit, and we actually do not gain through there. We didn't actually have a very good run, so we know we've got it all to do in this final section of the lap. Just getting to that apex perfectly, carrying good speed, getting a little bit of wheel spin on the exit because we're pushing the limit, every bit of road that we can. Nice and early to the apex. We're opening up this final corner a bit more for ourselves now, and instantly we can see that the delta has went up. We've nailed the last sector, and it's going to be a 474.
Yes.
It was a pretty solid lap, and it was good enough for pole position. And yeah, not a bad place to start the race, that's for sure. So we got pole position. Now it's about yeah, just trying to execute as clean a race as possible, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So starting on the hard tyre, where I believe and our sound didn't work. As you can see, we actually had to pause the game to get our sound to work, and we had a pretty miserable start. But I mean, I think the start was just miserable because it was miserable, but it was, yeah, we got completely outdone by Tom at the start, but we send it around the outside, and now we're side by side on the AstroTurf where the traction isn't optimal, but we are somehow managing to keep our nose ahead of Tom Manley. So we hug him tight into turn 3, and Tom doesn't dive in too deep, and we manage to somehow hold that position as we get we're swapping the steering and everything. The grip is so low because at this stage the tyre temps didn't basically have temperature at the beginning on the harder compound. So as you can see, Tino Nalkanen on the mediums has flown up the order on the mediums, which fire up a lot quicker. So our hards are going to take a minute to get themselves fully up to temperature, because this was at the phase of the game where the tyres were at 70 degrees instead of 90 on the start. So it was a bit icy at the start, which explains the rally style driving, but nonetheless we have managed to somehow escape the opening melee after that really poor start. Still at the lead of the hard train, so that's what was important. And now, if possible, we want to try and follow Tino, because he's on the medium tyre, and the more he pulls us along at a medium pace, the more that helps our theoretical race as a hard compound starter. So lap 1 in the books, skipping on to lap 7 now. And we have indeed managed to stick with Tino. So now it's going to be, yeah, now we're just going to try our best to, well, I think Tino actually lets us go. Yeah, so Tino, I think because he knew his mediums were dropping off at this point, decided to actually let us go in the, I guess in the aim to lose as little race time as possible for his strategy to allow it to work as best as possible for him. So very fair play from Tino as we now skip on to lap 11, where I believe in the background Tino peels into the pit lane, and we are actually we've actually escaped the DRS of Tom Manley. However, key thing to note is he had DRS on Tino, so that gap will basically drop down under a second. We do use a bit of energy to try and, you know, not make it easy for Tom, but I think for as long as Tom wants to use his battery, he will be able to close into that gap given the straightaways that we have. We are using energy here just to, you know, not make it, you know, super simple for him, but I think as we're going to, we come on to this straight now, it's 1.1. Is it going to drop down any further? Yeah, we are using ERS all the way as well, actually, but we turn it off here, back on and off, on and off, on and off, and we turn it off, and when we did, as you can see there, Tom Manley dropping that gap down even more. So no matter what we spent, Tom was willing to spend more. So we used the battery, but unfortunately, it just Tom wanted to use more, which meant he got the DRS. But at the end of the day, it could be basically mutually beneficial destruction when you use both of your energy, you know, to the max, and then you're completely empty until the end of the race. However,
you are joking.
We have a safety car where we are on the hard tyres. Now, the key thing for us at this point in the race is we have to go onto a softer compound of tyres. So we're going to go in the mediums, and thankfully, the medium tyres from this point in the race will be able to get to the end. So, as we can see now, darting into the pit lane, I think we actually gave up quite a bit of lap time there on the pit entry, which was quite poor from me, to be completely fair. But at the end of the day, we're under safety car, so I don't really think it made a grand scheme of difference in the end. But nonetheless, I shouldn't have wasted that delta. But yeah, onto the mediums. We should get to the end of the race pretty comfortably, albeit we'll just have a bit more deg than we would have liked. So I guess the focus from this point was to try and manage our tyres, manage our energy as best as possible, so that we've got enough at the end to defend from any sort of attack. So yeah, skipping on to lap 15, safety car has now entered, or is on its way to entering the pit lane. We are now weaving around the place, trying to get temperature on our tyres. Top four are on the medium compound. Tino in P5, who was quite unlucky there actually in the grand scheme of everything to lose out with that safety car. But as you can see now, we are bringing it onto the main straight, and we decide to punch it, and we have a relatively good restart, getting a solid gap to the car behind, using a bit of battery just as a bit of protection, and we are safe away to kick off this second stint of the race. So yeah, that's pretty much that then. Just pushing on to try and, you know, get a feel for the car. Obviously we've got a bit more grip now, so it should be a bit easier than it was on the hard compound. Tom Manley sticking to us like glue at the beginning of this stint, but as we have quite a big snap there, as the tyres probably weren't 100% up to the standard we would have liked. But yeah, getting away nicely on the safety car restart, and as you can see now, skipping on to lap what is going to be 27, because this was basically a game of like waiting. We just needed to wait and wait and wait this whole stint until Tom wanted to attack. So during this whole stint, I was just making sure I was keeping my tyres in good shape, keeping my battery in good shape, and as you can see, defending the inside to Tom Manley, who decides to have a look around the outside, which it's really hard to pull off at that corner. But yeah, 2.5 laps remaining in this race, and we have, I believe, a pretty good battery reserve, which I believe was more than Tom behind, which gave us sort of a tactical high ground going into these final few laps. We had decent tyre life, we had good energy, and yeah, it was now just a case of trying to react and predict what the car behind was going to do, when they were going to attack, and yeah, what to do when that happened. So as you can see, Tom's closed up quite a lot going into this next DRS zone. We don't have a particularly great exit, so now we decide to use a bit of that battery. Side by side, going into the final sector of this lap. We were never going to make his life easy for him, so we show him the door, leave him enough room, and hold that line going into that final section. holding a slightly tighter line so that Tom can't come back underneath us. We have a small bit of contact, no harm done though. And now punching it onto the straight. A bit of ERS usage now, darting straight to the inside to break away from the slipstream, trying to minimise the gap that Tom gains. 2 laps to go now as we dart into Tom, but Tom makes a mistake and runs wide, so that means that we do not need to spend much battery going onto this straight. So keeping our battery reserves pretty nice and healthy going into this final phase of the race. Tom running a slight bit deep into that corner, but not too terrible there at all. So yeah, we've fended off the attacks, we've kept our reserves up nice and high to protect against what was happened so far. And yeah, as you can see, the grip is getting a bit lower now. The car is moving around a bit more in these corner exits. We've got a 4.5 gap, which is quite large actually, given the way this race was running, to Tom Manley behind. So at this stage, yeah, I mean, we have again quite a lot of understeer through there, and I think we are okay from attack, are we? Or is Tom going to go for it? No, we have to defend on the inside there. Tom had a little look, but now it's all about, we've got track position, and crucially I believe we've also got the battery. So now it's all about having as clean a run as possible to the end of this race. Tom Manley right behind us, but we have the battery. We've got a 3/10 gap, 4/10 gap to begin this lap, and it's all about now dumping the battery. And as long as we don't make any major mistakes and just equalise what Tom does on the battery, we should just about have enough to defend on these straightaways for this final lap of the race. Tom isn't given as much breathing room though. He is still right there with us. But yeah, we've done enough so far. We still have enough battery in the tank, and at this point I believe Tom was starting to run drier and drier on the battery. We managed to save more than him while being out in front, which we now managed to, I think, start to benefit from. As you can see now, we are starting to pull away because we're just starting to flex that battery now. We've pulled that gap going into the final section, the final DRS section of this race. The gap is now half a second. We just get straight back on that energy button, and there's nothing that Tom can do to answer it because we've just got that little bit more going into the final section of this lap. So we managed this race. We had the safety car, which made our lives a little bit more difficult with the tyres at the end of the race, but it was very well managed. We kept it clean in the second stint. We didn't get any penalties. We didn't have any major issues. We managed it well, and we are going to get to reap the rewards.
There we go. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. I wasn't going to give him it that easy. Yes.
So there we have it, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in today to this video where we took the win for WOR Australia.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yeah, hope you enjoyed the race. Hope to see you guys around more for future videos. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe down below. You know, that typical YouTuber saying that we have to always say at the end of videos. You know, begging it as usual. But anyway, love you all. Catch you guys in the next one, and I'll see you guys next time, which I've just said twice. I'm very good at outros. See ya.